Homeowners staring at a yard dominated by crabgrass, dandelions, and clover often assume the only fix is an expensive full renovation involving sod, professional tilling, or costly chemical treatments spread across an entire season. However, lawn care specialists and horticulturists increasingly point to a far simpler, dramatically cheaper solution that begins with a single inexpensive tool: a soil probe or a basic screwdriver, which many experts refer to as the $2 step. This unassuming first move, they explain, determines the success or failure of every dollar spent afterward on seed, fertilizer, and labor. Why most weedy lawns fail before reseeding even begins. According to turfgrass researchers at several land-grant universities, the primary reason lawns become overrun with weeds in the first place is not a lack of grass seed or fertilizer, but compacted, imbalanced soil that grass simply cannot thrive in. Weeds such as plantain, chickweed, and knotweed are opportunistic species that tolerate compacted, nutrient-poor, or improperly pH-balanced soil far better than turfgrass does. When homeowners skip straight to spreading new seed over such soil, the same underlying conditions that allowed weeds to dominate in the first place work against the new grass, and within weeks the weeds return stronger than ever. This is where the inexpensive first step comes in. Before purchasing bags of seed, experts recommend testing the soil's compaction and pH using a simple probe that costs as little as $2 at most hardware stores. A homeowner pushes the probe into the ground in several locations around the yard. If it meets significant resistance a few inches down, the soil is compacted and will need aeration before any seed is applied. This single test, performed across a handful of spots in the lawn, reveals more about a lawn's true condition than an entire bag of seed ever could. Understanding soil compaction as the root cause. Soil compaction occurs when the particles of soil are pressed tightly together, eliminating the air pockets that plant roots, water, and beneficial microorganisms depend on. Foot traffic, children playing, pets running back and forth, and even repeated mowing with heavy equipment gradually compress soil over years. Once compacted, water tends to run off the surface rather than soaking in, and grass roots struggle to penetrate more than an inch or two below ground. Weeds, by contrast, often have tap roots or shallow, aggressive root systems that are far more tolerant of these harsh conditions. Lawn care professionals note that this is precisely why so many reseeding attempts fail. A homeowner spends money on premium seed, spreads it across the yard, waters diligently, and yet within a month the weeds have choked out the new grass again. The seed itself was never the problem. The compacted soil beneath it was. This is why the cheap probe test has become something of a mantra among landscaping educators. Check the soil first, spend money second. What the $2 probe test actually reveals: when the probe or screwdriver slides into moist soil, easily to a depth of 6 inches or more, the soil is likely loose enough to support new grass roots. When it stops abruptly after only an inch or two, that area needs core aeration. The process of mechanically removing small plugs of soil to relieve compaction and allow air, water, and nutrients to reach deeper root zones. Many home improvement retailers rent core aerators by the day for a modest fee, making this step accessible even to homeowners on a tight budget. Soil probes purchased for this purpose are typically nothing more than a slender metal rod with a handle, though gardening experts note that a long flathead screwdriver works nearly as well. For a casual assessment, the point of the exercise is not scientific precision, but a quick, low-cost diagnostic that tells a homeowner whether they are about to waste money on seed spread over hostile ground. Testing soil pH alongside compaction. Alongside compaction, soil pH plays a major role in whether new grass seed germinates successfully or whether weeds continue to dominate. Most turfgrass species prefer a slightly acidic to neutral pH range, generally between 6.0 and 7.0. Soil that strays significantly outside this range makes it difficult for grass to absorb the nutrients it needs, even when fertilizer is applied generously. Weeds, once again, tend to be far more adaptable to a wider pH range, which explains why an imbalanced lawn so often becomes weed territory. Inexpensive pH test kits, some costing only a few dollars, allow homeowners to take a small soil sample and receive a rough pH reading within minutes. If the soil proves too acidic, agricultural lime is typically recommended to raise the pH. If it is too alkaline, elemental sulfur or other acidifying amendments can bring it back into a range hospitable to grass. Skipping this test, experts warn, often means treating symptoms rather than the underlying cause, resulting in a cycle where homeowners repeatedly reseed a lawn only to watch weeds creep back in. Clearing existing weeds before reseeding. Once the soil test confirms compaction levels and pH, most lawn care guides recommend removing as much of the existing weed growth as possible before introducing new seed. This can be done through manual pulling for smaller infestations or through a non-selective herbicide application for lawns overwhelmingly dominated by weeds, followed by an appropriate waiting period before reseeding so the chemical does not interfere with new grass germination. Some homeowners opt for solarization, a technique using clear plastic sheeting to trap heat and kill weeds and their seeds over several weeks during warm months, as a chemical-free alternative. Mowing the existing lawn very short, sometimes referred to as scalping, is another common preparatory step. This reduces competition from surviving weed foliage and allows more sunlight to reach the soil surface once seed is applied. Bagging the clippings during this stage prevents any weed seeds present in the cut material from redistributing across the yard. Aeration and soil amendment. With compaction identified through the probe test, core aeration becomes the next practical step for most weedy lawns. This process involves pulling small plugs of soil from the ground, typically 2 to 3 inches deep, and leaving them on the surface to break down naturally. The resulting holes allow water, oxygen, and nutrients to reach grass roots far more effectively than before. For particularly compacted or clay-heavy soils, applying a thin layer of compost after aeration helps improve soil structure over time, adding organic matter that increases water retention and microbial activity. Following aeration, many experts recommend a light top dressing of high-quality topsoil or a soil amendment blended for lawns, spread evenly across the surface. This creates an improved seed bed that gives new grass seed the best possible start, rather than forcing it to germinate directly in the same compacted, weed-favoring soil that caused the problem originally. Selecting the right grass seed for the region and site conditions. Grass seed selection matters significantly once the soil has been properly prepared. Cool season grasses such as Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, and tall fescue tend to perform best in northern climates, while warm season varieties like Bermuda grass, zoysia, and centipede grass are better suited to southern regions. Homeowners are frequently advised to choose a seed blend formulated for their specific climate, zone, and for the amount of sun or shade their particular yard receives. Since a seed variety mismatched to site, conditions will struggle regardless of how well the soil has been prepared. Many experts also recommend seed blends that include a mix of grass types rather than a single variety, since this diversity provides some resilience against disease, pests, and localized soil variation across a yard. Reading the seed label for germination rates and purity percentages is another detail specialists emphasize, since inexpensive seed often contains a higher percentage of filler material or weed seed contaminants than premium blends. Applying seed, starter fertilizer, and mulch. Once the seed bed has been prepared, seed is typically spread using a broadcast or drop spreader to ensure even coverage across the lawn, following the application rate listed on the product packaging. A light raking afterward helps work the seed slightly into the soil surface, improving seed-to-soil contact, which is essential for germination. A starter fertilizer formulated specifically for new grass, typically higher in phosphorus to encourage root development, is commonly applied at this stage as well. A thin layer of straw mulch or a specialized seeding mulch product is often spread over the newly seeded area to retain moisture, moderate soil temperature, and reduce erosion from wind or rain while the seed germinates. This step is particularly important for lawns reseeded during warmer months, when the soil surface can dry out quickly and interrupt the germination process. Watering schedule for new seed. Consistent moisture is widely regarded as one of the most critical factors in successful lawn reseeding. Newly seeded areas typically require light watering multiple times per day, enough to keep the top inch of soil consistently moist without pooling water on the surface. As seedlings emerge and establish, Watering frequency is gradually reduced while the duration of each watering session increases, encouraging roots to grow deeper into the improved soil. Profile created during the aeration and amendment stages. Homeowners are often cautioned against allowing the seeded area to dry out completely at any point during the first few weeks, since even a single day of drought stress can kill fragile new seedlings and open the door for weeds to reestablish themselves in bare patches. Ongoing weed prevention after reseeding. Even after successful germination, lawn care specialists stress that ongoing maintenance determines whether weeds return. Mowing new grass at the proper height, generally not shorter than 3 inches for most cool season varieties, encourages deeper root growth and shades the soil surface, making it harder for weed seeds to germinate. Regular fertilization according to a seasonal schedule keeps grass vigorous, enough to outcompete weeds naturally, reducing the need for herbicide intervention over time. Pre-emergent herbicides are sometimes recommended for subsequent seasons, though experts note these must be timed carefully, so they do not interfere with any future overseeding efforts, since most pre-emergents prevent all seeds, including grass seed, from germinating for a period of weeks. Why the cheap first step matters most. Ultimately, lawn care educators return to the same central point. The $2 soil probe test is not a minor preliminary detail, but the single most important diagnostic step in transforming a weed-dominated lawn into a healthy one. Skipping it in favor of jumping straight to seed and fertilizer purchases, they argue, is the most common and costly mistake homeowners make. By spending a couple of dollars and a few minutes checking soil compaction and pH before anything else, homeowners position every subsequent dollar spent on aeration, amendments, seed, and fertilizer to actually succeed, rather than being wasted on a lawn whose underlying soil conditions were never addressed in the first place.